Moranis and Steve Martin face off in the musical comedy Little Shop of Horrors. And the never-aired pilot episode of Star Trek has landed in video stores. It's all coming up next on Siskel and Ebert and the Movies.
Looking for a few good men. Unfortunately, you ain't it. Now we will blaze a path into battle. Surrender is not in our creed.
Clint Eastwood is back as a hard-boiled Marine, a combat veteran trying to make men out of boys in Heartbreak Ridge. It's one of 4 new movies we'll be reviewing this week. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Heartbreak Ridge is not going to surprise a lot of Clint Eastwood fans, but it's not going to disappoint them either. This is a violent action movie with a lot of colorful characters and a lot of very colorful language, and it stars Eastwood as a gunnery sergeant named Tom Highway, who is a tough career U.S. Marine nearing his retirement age. Highway is not your ideal Marine. He gets in a lot of trouble, and the movie opens with him in a drunk tank.
I think war's just been declared. Why don't you just sit there and bleed a while before you taste some real pain?
Once out of jail, the old Marine heads for his old outfit and finds himself riding on a bus next to a hotshot young rock and roll singer.
I'm a singer, man. You heard of me. Stitch Jones, Earl of Funk, Duke of Cool, Ayatollah of rock and roller.
Shut your face, hippie.
You say hippie, man? Ain't been no hippies around here for centuries, man. You been freeze-dried or doing hard time?
Eastwood's assignment, whip a bunch of young recruits into shape. That involves a man-to-man combat with his archenemy, the commanding officer.
I don't see it that way, Major.
You out of order, Gunny. First platoon is king of the pit.
How do you figure?
Your man cheated.
I say he improvised.
He cheated!
He adapted, he overcame.
The plot of Heartbreak Ridge is not exactly original. We've seen the tough drill sergeant before, and we've seen the green recruits in a lot of other movies. The only thing really new this time is that the battle scenes at the end are in Grenada. We haven't seen that war on the screen before. But Heartbreak Ridge really worked for me, partly because of the amazingly colorful language in the screenplay, and it is salty and R-rated, and Eastwood says things even the Marines may not have heard of before. I also like the movie because of its sheer energy.
I didn't care for the movie at all, and I'm surprised that you liked it because it is predictable in the ways that you say, of the tough old guy training the young recruits. We've seen that in everything from Police Academy to The Dirty Dozen. And so then I'm waiting for the movie to go to someplace interesting. And where does it go? Grenada. Not an interesting war in reality, not an interesting war presented in this film. I was
bored. It is interesting in this film because what he's doing is he's taking these kids that we've met and he's giving them their first trial under fire. What's wrong with that? How big of a war do you want? And you can only see what's happening on the screen. You can't see if there are 10 million people someplace else beyond what's happening on the screen. So in that sense, any battle scene is equally interesting, potentially.
Well, potentially, but as filmed here, I thought, as filmed here, I thought it was lackluster. It almost looked like a training exercise because the emphasis was not on what was being fought for, but on these kids.
You missed the whole sub-point of the movie, which is that this guy is almost at retirement. He has seen battle. He was there at Heartbreak Ridge. The kids and his commanding officer have never been in battle before.
Right.
The whole movie is about a peacetime army who suddenly finds that one of these phony alerts is for real.
Yeah, and it's boring. And
but it's not boring.
The time that it gets there, and the formula ways that it gets there is really boring.
The formula is basically he's training the kids, but what about the fact that he surrounds himself with so many fascinating character actors?
I didn't think they were
so much great dialogue, lots of situations. Marsha Mason, for example, and his former wife.
Marsha Mason and he are interesting in this picture, and I wish it had been more about the two of them and less about these boring kids.
Well, you gave me one thing that's interesting. Now, what about the young kid that plays rock and roll? What about the commanding officer who was such a great villain?
No.
No. And then what about Clint Eastwood himself, playing against the Rambo stereotype?
I think that he's playing a tired Clint Eastwood. And I really did not like this film.
I don't think he's very tired in this movie at all.
I think he's quite tired, and I was surprised at it. Our next film is Solarbabies, an intriguing title, ridiculous film, combining elements of E.T. and Rollerball and Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, and a little bit of the Road Warrior 2, and probably another 20 figures I could name, all of which are better than this one, Solarbabies, which tells the story of a bunch of kids held captive in a prison camp where all looks hopeless, until a little boy who looks like he's been borrowed from a Steven Spielberg movie finds a magical globe that glows and restores his hearing. And the globe has other magical powers.
He likes to be held.
It does. I can feel it likes to be held. Hey, Bodie.
His name is Bodai. Jason, can we keep him?
The kids have fun with the ball in a game of roller hockey.
Pass it over here! Look it to me, Della! Hey, Jace!
Eventually, though, the movie gets away from games and does tell a story of conflict, as the kids run into Richard Jordan, a crooked cop in league with an evil woman scientist who sicks her pet mechanical monster onto the magical globe.
Gentlemen, this is Terminac. He's a multi-capable masterpiece. He can squeeze the color from a ruby or deftly pluck the eye from a living bird. And he's been programmed to enjoy what he does.
Neat monster looks like it was borrowed from Terminator. Everything in this movie looks like it was borrowed from some other movie. A neat woman, neat globe, dumb kids, though. Stupid story. With this movie, you get the idea they built the hardware first and then tried to write a script around it, ripping off elements from a half-dozen successful movies. So don't be misled by that captivating title, Solarbabies, because I was interested when I first heard the title. It's trash.
You know what I thought of when I saw this movie? I was looking at, now I don't think the kids were that dumb. For example, the lead is played by Jamie Gertz, who was opposite Ralph Macchio in Crossroads. She has a very good character here, and she does a lot of good work.
It's just that hard-bitten young little woman.
Yeah, but what's wrong with that?
Well,
what's wrong with a hard-bitten young little woman?
It's just that I've seen it so many times.
Okay, well, you've seen so many things so many times.
Get into what's wrong with this
I felt bad about the movie was, as I looked at performance after performance, Richard Jordan makes an effective bad guy here. The evil woman scientist that you pointed out.
I wish we'd seen more of her.
Was very effective. The filmmakers did not support the effort of the actors and all of the people who had to go through all of those incredible stunts out there in the desert. It was a lot of hard physical labor. These people gave 100% to contribute to the movie, and the story wasn't there. The people asked for 100% commitment from the people on the screen, and all they did was rip off, as you said, 6 or 7 other movies. So that it was bankrupt from the day that they said action the first time, and it was a no-win situation.
Don't you think it's because they were more in love with the hardware? They said, we'll do roller skating, we'll have action. You remember James Caan was good in rollerball, we'll have this monster and all that, and they forget the actors.
Yeah, the movie should be about something. That's a helpful tip, I think. When we come back, we'll review a new musical about a man-eating plant. Now, this movie is about something. It's called Little Shop of Horrors.
The guy sure looks like plant food to me.
Our next movie is named Little Shop of Horrors, and this movie has finally done what so many movies have been trying to do for a long time now. It captures some of the same magic as the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which, of course, is a long-running cult hit. And I think that this movie might be the next big cult film. The movie's a romance set in a flower shop where a cute little plant in the window grows up to become a fearsome man-eater. The movie stars Rick Moranis from SCTV as a young wimp who works in the shop, and Ella Green in a terrific repeat of her stage performance as the girl that he falls in love with. The plant really starts to like Moranis after he feeds it some blood that he squeezes from a cut on his finger, and the only problem is he only has 10 fingers and the plant is insatiable.
Oh boy, here we go again. Come on, I haven't got much left. Just give me a few days to heal, okay? Then we'll start again on the left hand and...
me.
I beg your pardon?
Feed me.
Tooey, you talked. You open your trap, you sing, and you say...
Feed me, cowboy! Feed me now!
Steve Martin has a hilarious supporting role in the movie as a sadistic motorcycle-riding punk who also happens to have a daytime job. Here he sings about some advice he got from his mother.
I'd poison Guppies, and when I was done, I'd find a pussycat bashing its head. That's when my mama said...
What did she say?
She said, my boy, I think someday you'll find a way to make your natural tendencies pay. You'll be a dentist. You have a talent for causing things. Some be a dentist. People will pay you to be inhumane.
Ellen Greene plays Martin's girlfriend, but he beats her up, and her boss, Vincent Gardenia, is appalled.
Audrey, where'd you get that china?
China?
Audrey, that greasy boyfriend of yours is beating up on you again? Look, I know it's none of my business, but I'm beginning to think he's maybe not such a nice boy.
I got these pies unloaded for you, Mr.
Seymour, look what you've done to the inventory.
Don't yell at Seymour, Mr. Mushnick.
Hi, Audrey. You look radiant today. Is that new eye makeup?
Little Shop of Horrors has an almost unbeatable combination of gruesome humor, slapstick sight gags, and really funny acting. This is one of those movies where the actors never seem to be straining because everything they do starts out to be so funny anyway, even before they got to the set, that all they have to do is just enjoy it right along with us. The movie has a lot of good-hearted charm in it. It also has what every great love story needs. Not one villain, but two who are trying to separate the lovers. You get your choice here. Would you rather be eaten alive by a man-eating plant or have Steve Martin drill your cavities?
Yeah, doing Elvis Presley. I mean, it's really, that is a funny supporting performance.
Yes,
I'd like to see him get an Oscar nomination out of that little bit. The movie is quite charming, as was the stage play, which is still running for a long time in New York and now moving around the country. The thing that I want to focus in is that it's a good musical, a well-directed musical, done by Frank Oz from The Muppet Show and all that. There are scenes in the opening of the film talking about people who are living in a downtown rotten neighborhood who want to break out, just like this little kid, that are beautifully done as a sheer musical. So I think that they've made a really complete film, which also was the Rocky Horror Picture Show, done and directed well as a musical. This is not just a series of little bits and pieces. It's well put together.
Well, now, the opening scenes you're talking about have the three black women who are the singing group.
Right.
As I recall from having seen the play, they're new. They weren't in the play.
I don't remember.
And they give a whole kind of Greek chorus to the whole movie. They come in every once in a while and do sort of like the Trashettes or whatever Bette Midler's backup group is called. They kind of come in and comment on everything. And looking at them, looking at all of the various costumes and situations in this movie, you can almost see that within a year or so, this is going to be playing at midnight with everybody dressing up now like dentists and harlots, I think they were called, rather than the Rocky Horror Picture Show. This movie is going to run for a long time. I'd like to see it again tonight, which is always the acid test.
That is a good test. Coming up next, two special films, Defense of the Realm, a spy thriller, and The Cage. This was the original Star Trek pilot that's now on video, and it features a different captain than Captain Kirk. Realm, a solid English spy thriller set in the newspaper world where a young reporter pursues a case of suspected espionage implicating a big minister in England and then one of his newspaper's best older reporters. At first, the young reporter sneaks into the car of the wife of the British official who has just been accused of a sex scandal. She doesn't know he's a reporter, and thinking he's police, she's very candid with him.
My husband may be an adulterous bastard, but he's certainly not a Soviet spy.
All the same, I mean, you can see that they do have a point. MP with access to defense secrets. Top KGB agent sleeping with the same woman.
Not at the same time, I presume.
Oh, that rotten press. Now, that reporter has his quotes, and he has to decide now whether to run his story, which is still unsubstantiated, and risk offending Denholm Elliott, the veteran reporter on the same paper and a friend of the implicated minister.
Dennis Markham is not a traitor.
Oh, I see. One old comrade sticking up for another, eh?
What?
You heard.
I left the party in 1956, for God's sake.
Well, then you're in no bloody position to be objective.
Oh, objectivity being the hallmark of this great and honourable newspaper. Spare me the humbug, dear boy.
Give me a break, Vernon. You know how it is. It's a bloody good story.
Oh, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Moving at a pace, much like the reporters and all the president's men, this young newshound eventually realizes he's been set up in a plot to defame the minister. Here he confronts his editor.
Where did the tip-off come from?
Look, you know perfectly well I've got to protect my sources.
Oh, yeah? Well, from now on, nobody is protecting anybody.
I'm sorry, I can't tell you.
I want to know who told you Kleist was KGB.
I can't tell you.
That's Gabriel Byrne as the young reporter, very good in this film. Defense of the Realm is a realistic newspaperman story, and it also is a solid thriller full of surprising twists and turns. I love stories where the protagonists are racing ahead faster than I am. They still can't figure out what's going on. We can't either, and that's what we have here. Defense of the Realm. It is not going to get a big advertising push. It's just a little movie, but look for it in your city. It's very good.
I liked it very much too, Gene. I really like this film, and I saw it a second time just recently, and I liked it just as much as the first time because it's so intelligent. It doesn't just depend upon the answer to the puzzle.
Right.
It depends upon all the characters and all of their motivations all the way through. And you mentioned Denham Elliott, who plays that older reporter. We could almost make a rule here. At least in recent years, Denham Elliott has never given a bad performance.
Yeah, or appeared in a bad film.
Or appeared in a bad...
A Room with a View.
It's kind of like the Good Housekeeping seal of approval. Denham Elliott says, if this film is good enough for me to be in, it's good enough for you to see.
A Room with a View is, of course, the case this year.
That's right, yeah.
I like the whole newspaper world. Now, we're American newspaper men. It's fun for me to see British newspaper men who... I don't know. They got
have no
style.
Principles at all.
I mean, I was just going to say they've got a style there that is so great. I mean, it would be fun to work in. It would be fun to work in their office. Now, you see what that movie has done to me? It wants me. I already want to be in that world. There's another one of your acid tests. If you'd like to be part of the movie, then you know the movie's
well,
cooking.
it's a real good one. Defense of the Realm. Coming up next on our special home video segment, we're going to look at the never-before-seen pilot episode for Star Trek.
There is no survivors encampment, number one. This is all some sort of trap. We've lost.
Now it's time for our weekly home video segment, all about what's new at your local video store. And one new cassette this week is of a television show that was taped more than 20 years ago. The original pilot episode of Star Trek, which Gene Roddenberry made in an attempt to pitch the show to NBC television. The episode was called The Cage, and it takes the Enterprise crew to an alien planet where the resident life form can read minds.
You now see the primitive fear-threat reaction. The specimen is about to boast of his strength, the weaponry of his vessel, and so on. Next, frustrated into a need to display physical prowess, the creature will throw himself against the transparency.
That was the late Jeffrey Hunter there in a role later made famous, the commander of the starship, by William Shatner. Star Trek fans will know that part of the story was recycled into a program that eventually did air on television, but about half of this footage has not been seen before in its present form, and you can tell it apart because the original footage is from Roddenberry's own black and white copy of the show, and the stuff that they aired was, of course, aired in color, so it switches back and forth. Is The Cage any good? I think it's only fair. I think it's mostly for Star Trek fans.
Well, I think it's a must for Star Trek fans because, I mean, they would want to know every piece of thing connected with the series. I enjoyed it, too, looking at it as a pilot coming out, I think in 1964 is the copyright on the thing that I saw, and trying to imagine what people were, how they were reacting to it. And it is, the show was called Too Cerebral at the time, and I can see how people could say, hey, wait a minute, what is this stuff about issues about free will and dreams and all this kind of stuff? I thought it was kind of interesting.
Yeah, what is interesting is that you can see in this very first pilot the seeds of the whole Star Trek formula, and the fact that the last 3 Star Trek movies have returned to it is interesting. Human values and intellectual, philosophical questions.
My video pick this week is a little treasure from earlier this year called Desert Bloom. In fact, it's still moving around the country in movie theaters, but it's now in video. The story of a coming of age of a teenage girl in the Nevada of 1950s as the A-bomb is being tested. In addition to confronting life and death as represented by the bomb, this young girl also has her eyes open to her relationships with her boy her age, her abusive father played by John Voight, and her worldly aunt.
I wonder what makes somebody act mean. Sometimes I think he's the meanest man in the world.
He's not the meanest, honey.
Maybe there's just one little thing that if you knew what it was, and you did it, it'd make the person happy. You know, like when a girl kisses the frog, and the frog turns into a prince.
That is Annabelle Gish as the young girl, and she gives in her first movie role nothing less than one of the year's best performances. Bright, sensitive, good-hearted. We see a human being come alive in this beautiful movie, Desert Bloom. Not Desert Hearts, which is also good, but Desert Bloom.
Yeah, I had some problems with this movie, but I had no problems at all with Annabelle Gish's performance. And also I found that John Boyd, once again, created a very interesting three-dimensional character, so I would recommend it for home viewing, where not so much depends upon whether the movie is great. You know, you can take a chance on video.
Well, I'll tell you, I think it's a great one, and I'd see it in any venue.
Okay, now let's take another look at the main movies on this program. We disagreed on Clint Eastwood's Heartbreak Ridge, with Clint as a Marine drill instructor. I liked the movie's energy and salty dialogue. Gene thought it was recycled out of gung-ho war movies like The Dirty Dozen. One thumb up, one thumb down.
Right.
We both hated Solarbabies, the futuristic fantasy that borrowed so heavily from the Mad Max movies. 2 thumbs down for that one. We both had a great time, however, at Little Shop of Horrors, an offbeat, upbeat, really funny entertainment that was about romance and a man-eating plant. 2 thumbs up. I hope they don't get bitten off. And we both admired Defense of the Realm, the exciting, realistic British newspaper thriller. 2 thumbs up for that one. So, Defense of the Realm.
Yeah.
Little Shop of Horrors, and I say Clint Eastwood.
And I say you're wrong on that. That's it for this week. Next time we'll be back with reviews of 4 new movies, including Eddie Murphy chasing a kid with mystical powers in The Golden Child. Also, Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short as actors turned hombres in the Western comedy Three Amigos. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.